You're listening to Mr. Credit on San Diego 1700 with local credit expert Derek Evans. Now, live in studio, Mr. Credit.
Welcome to Mr. Credit. We are live and local here in San Diego, bringing you the most important hour in radio and telling you everything they don't want you to know, they being the bureaus, the banks, the government, and, of course, the media. Unfortunately, the Padres lost 2-1 yesterday and now actually have a half-game deficit on L.A. for first place in the NL West. We still got to root them on, though. They're doing extremely well. Tonight we're in New York again at 4 p.m. You can catch all the San Diego Padres action right here on San Diego 1700. In fact, we won't be doing Mr. Credit tomorrow because we've got the day game for the Padres, so if you tune in to get Mr. Credit tomorrow, you get the Padres instead. Pretty good trade if you ask me. Today, we're going to be talking about student loans, debt settlement a lot. We're going to be going through bankruptcy myths and facts and translating the credit news, of course, for you. But first, we'd like to welcome to the studio William McDonald with McDonald Legal Group. William, thanks for being here.
Hey, Mr. Credit, how you doing?
Fantastic. Great to have you as always. You know, we've got a bunch of stuff to go through today. There's no way we can get to all of it, but I think the first thing I want to talk about is something that is really a shocker when it comes down to it. Now, this is from the StarTribune.com. It's a story out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And basically what happened was this lady was put in jail for being in debt. Now,
Incredible.
I know you've told me that, you know, people are always worried about that when they owe money, that they're going to get thrown in jail, and you know, you always tell them, look, you shouldn't get thrown in jail for owing money. But listen to this story, okay? And this is the way the story reads. It's by Chris Cerise and Glenn Howitt, the Star Tribune staff writers. You committed no crime, but an officer is knocking on your door. More Minnesotans are surprised to find themselves being locked up over debts. As a sheriff's deputy dumped the contents of Joy Uhlmeier's purse into a sealed bag, she begged to know why she had been arrested while driving home after an Easter visit with her elderly mother. No one had an answer. She spent a sleepless night in a frigid county holding cell, her hands tucked under her armpits for warmth. Then handcuffed to a squad car, she was taken downtown for booking. Finally, after 16 hours in limbo, jail officers fingerprinted her and explained her offense. She missed a court hearing over an unpaid debt.
Wow.
I mean, is this legal? I mean, I know this is Minnesota, not California, but, you know, I try to bring these things up because it's unbelievable. This is over a $250 debt, by the way.
And I think in this case it's not so much the debt, it's the subpoena. So it isn't, I mean, I think it still holds true that there are no debtor prisons in the United States. And a lot of my clients, when they come in, they receive a complaint, summons a complaint. And you need to respond to that, but that isn't going to make you go to jail.
So if someone did get a complaint like that, say they were being sued, they had a court date and things like that, if they don't show up, they shouldn't get thrown in jail for that, right? Shouldn't they just lose the case, essentially, and maybe get,
right,
the wage garnishment?
There must have been, it's obviously state law there. So, there's maybe something, the way the courts operate there, that they actually subpoenaed her to show up to give testimony. That's what it sounds like to me. There isn't, like I said, there is no debtor prison in the United States, thank God. But
yeah, and definitely not in California. Right? I mean, if this happens in California, the way the law is set up, there's no way anybody's going to jail, right?
No, when a credit card sues you, they're gonna file a summons and complaint against you. You'll have 30 days to file a response to that. I'd of course recommend you seek an attorney to review the summons and complaint and see what the grounds are. And but you're absolutely right. If you don't respond to that summons and complaint, the creditor will simply get a judgment. Once they get the judgment, they can take collection action against you, garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, etc. But the remedy doesn't include throwing you in jail.
Okay, good. Well, that's good to hear. If anyone out there has a situation where you're being summoned to court, you have debtors or creditors trying to collect debts from you or contacting you on a regular basis, and you want to seek an attorney who has your best interest in mind, give William a call. It's 858-437-0103. He'll explain to you what your legal rights are, the different things that the collectors can actually do legally, and what you can do. How you can use the law to your benefit. So, crazy story. Thought it was worth bringing up. I really want to talk about this the student loan thing. So, here's a story. It's from the New York Times, and it says student debt and a push for fairness. Now, I am not a big proponent of accruing a lot of student debt, but there's pretty much, or student loan debt, you should say. There's pretty much no way to avoid it. With the way that tuition costs are increasing every single semester, every single year, as though they are a company that has no flaws. It really seems like we need to level the playing field here. Let's read this really good article here by Ron Lieber. If you run up big credit card bills buying a new home theater system and can't pay it off after a few years, bankruptcy judges can get rid of the debt for you. So in bankruptcy, you can discharge those types of debts, as we know, collections, credit cards, and things like that. They may even erase loans from a casino. But if you borrow money to get an education and can't afford the loan payments after a few years of underemployment or unemployment, that's another matter entirely. It's nearly impossible to get rid of the debt in bankruptcy court, even if it's a private loan from a for-profit lender like Citibank or the student loan specialist Sallie Mae. This part of the bankruptcy law is little known outside education circles, but ever since it went into effect in 2005, it inspired shock and often rage among young adults who got in over their heads. Today they find themselves in the same category as people who can't discharge child support payments or criminal fines. Now, here's the problem that I have with this whole setup the way it is right now. You can't, discharge student loan debt, right? Or there's some exception, but it almost never comes up. Isn't that how it works right now?
That's correct. It has to be you basically have to show an extreme hardship that you're disabled or for some reason that you cannot, find work to pay your student loans. So it's very hard to overcome that presumption that the student loan is non-dischargeable.
And the argument that, there's like a 10 to 15% unemployment in your state, city, county, or whatever it may be is not a good enough argument.
That's not a good enough argument.
Okay.
It really has to be, there's some sort of, physical limitation where you're just unable to work. Basically.
Sort of permanent
disability.
Okay. So the problem I have with that is, like I said, the schools, and most of them are run by states, state universities. Some of them are private, but they continue to raise tuition. Just looking back at the school where I went, University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri, the tuition in the past dozen years has gone up 4 times. It's 4 times as expensive today as it was a dozen years ago to go to school there. 4 times. Now, I cannot imagine that there's 4 times the value in that education today versus what there was 12 years ago. And this is the problem with the student loan debt situation, is that there isn't a leveling of the playing field. Now, I'm going to give you my opinion, and then you give me yours. My opinion is that we should set something up ahead of time. We should put some sort of limitation on the increase of tuition, because they can't just continue to increase tuition 15, 20, 25% every year. That creates a bubble, just like the housing bubble where we saw homes going up 10, 15, 20, 25% every year. You create a bubble, but how's this bubble going to burst? What's going to burst is that people are going to stop going to school because they just flat out know that there's no way they'll be able to afford to pay it back. I know people who are going to get teaching degrees and they end up with $100,000 in student loan debt.
Right. It doesn't make any economic sense to do that.
No.
Where your anticipated income after, from the degree isn't going to even be able to service the loans.
Yeah, and that's what we're coming to. Now, in a normal debt situation, we have the ability to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy and eliminate those debts, and that, as we say, levels the playing field. It makes it possible for all the parties involved, the creditor, the debtor, and the institution, or whoever it may be, to kind of have the opportunity to get out of the situation or charge more in the situation of credit cards, etc. So in this situation, we don't have that.
There's no checks and balances.
Yeah, there's no balance.
The creditor is just going to give loans to anybody because they know they're non-dischargeable. So there's no risk from the lender standpoint. So they're just going to give out loans unfettered, just to take the money, because even though this degree is only going to give you so much of a return, the creditor doesn't care because they know you're on the hook. You can't discharge it in bankruptcy. Like you said, there's no recourse for the consumer.
Now, and the reason I think this has an opportunity or a chance to make it, if it really, it's right now. Here, let's continue to read this real quick. Now, even Sallie Mae, tired of being a punching bag. Sallie Mae, one of the biggest student loan operatives in the country, actually the biggest, tired of being a punching bag for consumer advocates and hoping to avoid changes that would hurt its business too severely, has agreed that the law needs alteration. Sallie Mae is saying that, look, we get it. This is too good. We've had a great run. Things are going well, and we don't want to get bludgeoned here. So we're going to go ahead and accept the fact that change needs to happen, but we want to be involved in the change so that it's not too significant as far as hurting their business is concerned. Bills in the Senate and House of Representatives would make the rules for private loans less strict,